So welcome everyone to the 2020 District Showcase featuring award recipient Delaware County Soil and Water Conservation District. Indiana's District Showcase Award is sponsored by the Indiana Conservation Partnership and is designed to highlight the success of local soil and water conservation districts in the Hoosier State. The award focus allows districts the opportunity to share new project ideas or better ways to design and implement existing conservation practices. Here today is Delaware County SWCD to share with you their project involving the White River and removal of lowhead dams. With us today, we have David Heilman, if I'm pronouncing his name correct. He is the watershed coordinator and design consultant and will be doing the presentation for you today. We also have Becky Doherty with us. She is the soil health coordinator and has been with the SWCD for 5 years. So I will turn this over to you, David, and thank you so much for putting this together for us today.
Again, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to kind of showcase some of the projects that the Delaware County SWCD has been able to undertake these last few years. So with that, I'm going ahead and kind of jump right in here. We want to begin by kind of laying some groundwork of what's happened over the last 20 years with the Delaware County SWCD's goal to improve water quality, aquatic ecosystems, and even recreational opportunities within Delaware County and the surrounding East Central Indiana area. We can go back to a management plan that was started in 2000-2001 for 5 Huck 12s in and around Muncie, Indiana. And this plan kind of was born into, or created rather, 4 or 5 implementation phases that included education and outreach, restorations and demonstration wetlands, a master plan for Prairie Creek Reservoir, which is the backup water supply for the city of Muncie, and creating and implementing a cost share program. In the mid-2010s, Delaware County SWCD also received IDEM funding and EPA funding for a management plan in the headwaters of the Mississinawa, as shown kind of in this map here, which covered 26 sub-watersheds. As we all know, plans are important, but the ability to acquire funds to implement these BMPs, expand and expend cost share dollars, increase educational outreach, and engage the public is critical to improving water quality within our cities, our states, and the nation as a whole. The SWCD, Delaware County SWCD, has been fortunate to foster partnerships with state and local organizations to implement countless programs and projects all across the region. Born out of these plans and implementation grants are projects that not only improve water quality, but also improve quality of place. By allowing the public the opportunity to engage with nature, these natural systems become living laboratories that inspire generations to come to think critically about their role in the ecosystems that surround them. A few of these projects that the SWCD has been fortunate enough to be a part of are shown here in some pictures. One here in the top left, Craddock Wetlands, was the restoration of an urban wetland in Muncie, Indiana, which also included some nature trails, this beautiful pavilion shown here, and some plaza space. Bottom left, there was the restoration of a lake bank on Prairie Creek Reservoir, as shown here, using natural restoration methodologies and techniques. Top right, Wilderness Park, located in Hartford City, Indiana. This art installation helps park users engage and view nature in a different light. And then there are countless examples, as shown here in this Motivate Our Minds, of installations of rain gardens and bioswales to help percolate and clean out runoff. So all that has kind of led us to this project that we are discussing today. And even before we kind of jump into the specifics of the dam removal project, I want to talk about some of the context and history of our relationship, often complicated, with rivers and dams. So as we all know, rivers are our source of life, the source of life. Without them, life on Earth as we know it would cease to exist. And our relationship with rivers has changed over time as our needs have changed. They have provided us with avenues to transport goods and people all around the world. Rivers have also been used to harness power, we've used them to harness or to feed, power our mills and our power plants. We've utilized them to fuel our industrial complexes. However, these industrial complexes often use the same water supplies to carry refuse away from these plants and factories to disastrous effects. This is a picture of the Cuyahoga River, which you may be familiar with. You've seen this picture of the river burning. And although the singular event didn't affect change through the Clean Water Act, it was certainly one of the events that really pushed society as a whole to look at the way in which we use and view rivers. Dams have also played an important role in the way in which we utilize our rivers. In fact, the US saw, just like the rest of the world, saw a huge boom in the construction of dams, especially between the time of 1900 and 2000. In fact, there are over 91,000 dams located within the mainland continental United States. And of these 91,000 dams, over 8,000 of them are over 90 years old. And the concern with this is that as time marches on, as shown on this graph, the cost to maintain these structures increases significantly, right? Without proper maintenance, dams become liabilities to financial, cultural, and natural resources, as well as become a concern for human life. Within the United States, there are over 15,000 dams, so about 1 in 6, that create extreme hazard for human life and economic resources should they fail. And this is a concern, right? As dams are, as they get older and they start to crumble away, there's fear that if no one is maintaining them, that they will cause significant or catastrophic economic failures, as well as prevent a huge concern for those people that live downstream of the dams. As we know, manufacturing plants were the ones that typically used or needed lowhead dams to provide a continuous source of water for their manufacturing processes. But as the amount of manufacturing has decreased in the United States, those factories have become defunct, and oftentimes those dams are either abandoned or handed over to municipalities who don't have the funds to maintain those dams. This is one reason why dam removal has become a national and nationwide trend. And there are also a few other reasons why municipalities, organizations such as the Delaware County SWCD have partnered with other organizations to pursue dam removal. One of those reasons is ecological ecosystems. Riparian corridors along free-flowing rivers typically provide healthy ecosystems for aquatic life, plant life, etc. While the backwater pools behind dams are shallow, have increased water temperatures, and significantly decreased biodiversity and ecosystems. The Muncie Bureau of Water Quality has been monitoring biological health of the White River in Muncie for nearly 50 years. And for this project specifically is providing critical data to understand how dam removal will affect these populations and their locations. specifically populations of fish species and of mussel species in and along the White River. Just as note, and we'll talk about later, but the Muncie Bureau Water Quality is one of the partners for this project. Lowhead dams are also drowning machines. As you see on this map to your right, the states in the pink and the red have the highest death rates for people that have unfortunately been trapped in lowhead dam currents. Lowhead dams create this recirculating current near the face of the dam that becomes extremely difficult to escape as user or an object, or in some cases a person. They go over the dam, they get pulled back towards the face of the dam, and they get stuck in this recirculating current. And while unfortunately this happens too often, and one of the goals of the SWCD is always to educate people, and educating Muncie residents and Indiana residents as a whole about these dangers becomes increasingly important as more and more people unfortunately pass away in these dams. There's been a huge boom in outdoor recreation in the United States, which includes canoeing, kayaking, fishing, etc. In fact, outdoor recreation was a $460 billion business in 2019 in the United States and accounted for 3% of Indiana's GDP alone. And again, the SWCD is not obviously out to make money, but there is a desire, especially by Muncie residents that we've seen, to be out on the water, to be on the river, to be canoeing, kayaking, etc., throwing rocks in the river, fishing. And I have some really cool photos that I'll show to you later at one of the dam removal sites that kind of exemplifies this desire. So again, these are all things that the Delaware County SWCD cares about and wishes to promote: safety, education, the betterment of our biological and biological populations and of the ecosystems around it. So with that, in 2016, the Delaware County SWCD received Indiana DNR Lakes and River Enhancement Grant to complete the dam removal feasibility study along 4 of the 5 dams in Muncie. Between the headwaters of the White River in Randolph County and its confluence with the Wabash River down in Gibson and Knox County, there are 13 dams. Delaware County in Muncie has 5 of those dams, which is kind of a large share of the total dams. And we wonder why that is. And we were able to find some evidence that back in the 1890s, Muncie advertised the White River as a way to carry away the refuse of the city, quote unquote, right? We don't know whether or not this exact marketing campaign led to a huge manufacturing boom, but it certainly helped put Muncie on the map as a manufacturing powerhouse. The Indiana Bridge Company, Ball Glass Corporation, General Motors, and Indiana Steel and Wire all at one time had huge factories and manufacturing plants in Muncie along the White River. Some of these plants are even responsible for the dams that were in the city. There are 5 dams in Muncie. Again, this feasibility study covered 4 of them. The one it did not cover was the water treatment plant for Indiana American Water, be southeast of the city, down here is the farthest upstream dam. The first dam it covered was the Indiana Steel and Wire Dam. It was built in the early 1900s, approximately 3.8 feet tall, 105 feet wide. Initially was built with boulders, strengthened in the 1930s with a concrete cap, and it ensured a water supply for the Indiana Steel and Wire plant, which made wire and barbed wire. Removing this dam was critical to the Kissman Trailhead and Park master planning, which you see here. This gateway park will connect the White River Greenway and the Cardinal Greenway. and will provide a gateway entrance into the city on the east side of town. This is a $10 million investment by countless local and state organizations and the municipality itself. The SWCD was a small part of this by looking at removing of the dam in this specific location. The second dam was the George R. Dale Dam, kind of located in the center, near the center of town. It was built in 1984. It's approximately 8 feet tall and 120 feet wide. It's made of reinforced concrete, and there were initial plans to put in a hydroelectric power or make this a hydroelectric power dam. However, those never came to fruition. A big part of this feasibility study is creating the pretty pictures to sell to the public what the river could look like after the dam is removed. So this is a before image, and this is kind of an after image that was created to show, well, if we take the dam out, what could the White River look like? This is the Highstreet Dam, located in the center of town. It was built in 1910. It's approximately 7 feet tall and 160 feet wide. It was also a boulder dam capped with concrete slurry. The backwater pool for this dam extends about 5,100 feet upstream, and this dam was built to ensure water supply for the Indiana-Michigan Power Company power plant, which no longer exists. Again, here's another pretty picture that was created to kind of sell the project and show the extension of a White River Greenway down along the river front here, as well as the in-stream structure that could be built to kind of help maintain a backwater, somewhat of a backwater pool and protect the bridge piers. It was determined during the feasibility study that more detailed study and research would need to be completed at the Highstreet Dam due to several factors. One is the cantilever walk as part of the White River Greenway that runs at grade with the road, but above the river. No one is certain on the depth of those footers. And if the dam was removed, the water elevation dropped approximately 7 feet, if those footers would be exposed. So there need to be research done on that. There's a sewer interceptor line here, and at the time of the feasibility study, it was not known how deep that sewer interceptor line is. And again, if the dam is removed, would those lines be exposed? Research needed to be done on the bridge piers to understand those depths as well. There is significant erosion along the levee here, which would need to be addressed, as well as understanding the dam removal and its relationship and potential conflicts with the Army Corps levees. So it was recommended through the feasibility study that additional studies, research needed to be done before any action was taken with the Highstreet Dam. The final dam that was looked at in the feasibility study was the West Fork Dam. It was built in 1995. It's approximately 6 feet tall and 110 feet wide. It's an encased sewer interceptor running from the north side of the river to the south side to the stormwater or the sanitation plant. There's no backwater pool, as this quote-unquote dam was built at grade of the riffle. However, the hydraulic jump created by this dam has created a scour hole downstream of the dam, which could affect the structural stability of the dam, and also created a dangerous situation for recreationalists, canoers, kayakers going over the dam. So in this case, it was decided the best course of action would be to build a constructed riffle on the downstream side of the dam. So you just essentially take boulders and debris and you build a ramp, an extended riffle at approximately a 5% slope on the downstream side of the dam. This allows for fish passage up the dam, and also allows for safe passage for canoers and kayakers as they go downstream. And this is a before picture of that, or existing conditions. And this was the picture created to kind of show the public what that could look like when it was complete. After the feasibility study was completed, the SWCD worked to raise significant amount of funds that would be needed to remove the dams and modify the third dam. The project partners ended up being the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the DNR through the Lakes and River Enhancement Program, City of Muncie, Indiana, Community Enhancement Projects, which is a local foundation, the Muncie Sanitary District, Bureau of Water Quality, and the Ed and Virginia Ball Foundation, which is another local foundation. All these organizations either provided cash funds or in-kind match for the projects and for the monitoring phase. So the first thing we had to do to begin the removal process was to get the permits. And one of the challenges that came about was understanding what the permitting agencies actually wanted to see in the permit applications. Dam removal is a fairly new trend within the state of Indiana. And with that, the agencies just were caught off guard, didn't really know what to expect to see and what they even wanted to see in the permit applications. IDEM, in the middle of the permit application, decided that they wanted to know what contaminants, heavy metals, were in the sediments behind the dams that were proposed being removed, the Indiana Steel and Wire Dam and the George R. Dale Dam. We ended up testing the Highstreet Dam, or also known as the Pauline Street Dam, their sediments as well, just for future reference. And if that dam was ever removed, this process would not have to be completed again. We compared what we found to residential contact levels set by the EPA and IDEM. And in every condition, the levels for those contaminants were below or did not exceed concern for IDEM or EPA, meaning that the sediment could would be allowed to wash downstream once the dams were removed. The alternative was if there was a concern about the contaminants or the heavy metals in the sediment within the backwater pool, that sediment would have to be mechanically removed and then hauled away to a secure and safe dumping site. This would have been financially untenable or unfeasible for the projects, and we feel fortunate that we did not have to go that route. And there was a little, I think everyone was a little nervous while we were waiting for the results, for fear that something to that caliber would have stalled the project out. But fortunately, there was no concern, and the dam removals could proceed on time. The first dam to be removed was the Indiana Steel and Wire Dam. These are photos of that dam removal process. And these dam removals started in the late summer of last year. This dam came out in less than 2 days. So it was not a very strong dam, not very structurally stable. And in fact, in some places, all the dam was a bunch of concrete bags, 80-pound bags that had been stacked up in the river and then left to harden as the water kind of rushed over them. The neat thing about this dam removal is that it exposed a natural feature, this riffle here, upstream of State Route 32. This red line kind of shows where the dam was, and this riffle was unknown to almost everybody. But when the dam was removed and the waters receded, this natural feature has kind of become a gathering space for the community. Again, as I explained, this is the spot of the Kissman Trailhead. I took this photo, I think, back in April or May. And as you can see, there's a kayaker here. There's a kayaker here and here. There are 2 people under the bridge. There's another group of people over here. And then upstream, there are a group of 5 or 6 kayakers ready to go down kind of this rapids area. So an almost immediate effect, less than 1 year after this dam was removed, the amount of recreationalists in this area is just exploded. This has also become the favorite spot for my kid. He's 2 years old, and he just likes to come down here. And he just likes to throw rocks in the river. So again, we've already seen a huge benefit to the removal of the dam and to the opportunities for people to interact with water in ways that may not have been possible before. This photo was taken in October of this year, standing at the dam, looking upstream. And as you can see, Mother Nature has begun to kind of creep back to the water's edge. And again, this creates a more natural setting, a setting that I would argue is more beautiful for not only for us, but I'm sure the aquatic wildlife and biological systems appreciate it as well. The next dam to come out was the George R. Dale Dam, or the Macaulay Dam. This dam took a little bit more equipment, a little more time, took about 2.5 weeks to remove because of the amount of rebar located in the dam. And I have a time-lapse video I'd like to show you guys of this dam removal.
And when was this one removed, David?
This one was also removed in late summer of last year. It was removed maybe a week or so after the Indiana Steel and Wire Dam was taken out. So we just kind of marched downstream with all of these projects. We did have some cloudy days, as you'll see through this time lapse, but we were fortunate that we had no heavy rain events. I think we were a little tense, a little concerned that a huge rain event could kind of one, delay our progress, but cause significant washout of the sediment and of the rubble that we had kind of stacked on the edge of the riverbanks before it was pulled off site. But we were fortunate we had good weather. So these are some photos taken during the dam removal process. And as you can see, the channel is much narrower. There's a much larger floodplain bench that has been exposed. All of this area along the backwater pool, extending up to the next bridge crossing is bedrock, minus some sediment in and around the dam. Here, this is the location of the existing dam. This photo was taken, again, October of this year, looking upstream. I was standing where what would have been the top of the dam. And as you can see, the bedrock here especially on the right bank, see a little bit over here on the left bank, makes it a little harder for nature to kind of creep back to the water's edge. But as you can see, it's a free-flowing river with a couple of riffles that have started to develop within the stream itself. The final project or dam modification was at the West Fork Dam. This one occurred after the George R. Dale Dam removal, so October, November of last year. These are photos of us installing the rock riffle. And these photos were taken October of this year, same location. So as you can see, it's had a year to kind of to fill out. One thing that is not understood, well, there hasn't been a lot of studies for or about, is how sediment moves through the system once the dam is removed. Right, there's a general understanding that it takes 3 to 5 years for the sediment located within a backwater pool to move downstream. However, no one has hard data or science about this. So as part of the grant application process, the SWCD included funds to do a 5-year study of the dam removal sites to understand just how long it takes for the sediment to move through the system. And that data is collected by collecting cross-sectional data at the same locations every year for 5 years, and then starting to compare those cross-sections just to understand how the sediment is moving and where the sediment is moving. And this last year, not a whole lot of sediment is moved. As you may well know, it was a relatively dry year, and without those larger rain events, that sediment is just not gonna move as much, or as fast for that matter. So the goal is, at the end of that 5 years, is to publish those results and findings, and hopefully shed a little more data and insight as to how river systems respond and react to dam removals. So pressing forward, as you know, we were able to remove the Indiana Steel and Wire Dam and the George R. Dale Dam, and do a modification at the West Fork Dam. Another feasibility study was needed at the Highstreet Dam, and the SWCD began to coordinate with Indian American Water to understand what could happen at that dam. The SWCD was able to secure funding last year from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Indiana DNR LAIR program to build a constructed riffle at the Indiana American Water Dam, which provides the continual water supply for the city of Muncie. So because of that, the dam could not be removed, and it was determined that another rock riffle would be installed at this dam. This, again, rock riffles allow for fish passage up into the headwaters of the White River, while also allowing recreationalists a safe way to navigate down the river without having to get out of their canoes or kayaks to portage in and around the dam. It is believed that construction on this will begin in 2021, summer or fall of 2021, and should be completed within a couple months after construction begins. The SWCD also secured funds to do the in-depth feasibility study needed at the Highstreet Dam to understand exactly what the costs will be and the feasibility of either a full removal, a partial removal, or constructing a rock riffle at this location as well. And with that, I thank you for listening to the presentation. I encourage everyone to visit our website at Delaware County SWCD.org to learn more about what we have going on, the projects that we've been fortunate enough to be a part of, and to see what else is coming down the pipeline. So with that, again, I appreciate your time and listening, and I'll hand it back over to Amy for the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, David. That presentation was amazing. I can tell you put a ton of time and energy into that. Very informative. I appreciate it a lot. Does anyone have any questions? Or Becky, I want to give you a chance if you'd like to say a few words. Unmute yourself and go ahead and do that at this time if you'd like to.
Hi, everybody. This is Becky Doherty. I'm the staff here at the Soil and Water. And I'll apologize first. I'm told there's a hum from my computer. So I'll be brief so that isn't too much on the recording. I noticed 3 of our supervisors are on this video. Josh Gruber is our chairman. John Newby is our secretary treasurer. And they've been with the district for several years. And then we also have Joe Hamilton, who just joined us last year as a supervisor. So I can't express how much I appreciate their help and support the 5 years I've been here. And then I also want to give a shout out to Rick Conrad. He is with the Sanitary District, which is one of our partners. I'm thrilled that he was able to join us today. Otherwise, I'd like to thank the State Association of Soil and Water for this award. We very much appreciate it. And I'll turn it back over to Amy.
Thank you, Becky. So does anyone have any questions for David or Becky on this project at this time?
Hey, Amy, I got a comment and I guess a question that leads to a question. Yeah, first of all, congrats on the recognition, and I can say personally, I appreciate the work that you do upstream on the White River. I live in Fishers, and I was joking earlier, my background is the White River and my canoe, so I spend a lot of my weekend mornings on the White River. So anything that you send down to us, we appreciate it being good quality stuff. So, I think it's interesting. I think you could do a case study on why it's important to do feasibility on dam removals. Look at the four of the ultimately the 5 that you looked at, because they were all a little bit different, right? And I think that's pretty interesting. And I think that dam removal is not a glamorous business to be in right now because it's not easy. And I think you just kind of demonstrated that, and it takes kind of the effort from organizations like the district to work with multiple partners to get stuff like this done. So I applaud you on that, because I know from my past experience working with the State Environmental Agency, it's not an easy thing. And David, it was funny to hear you talk about the soil permitting and that kind of stuff, because I remember hearing about that right before I left IDEM, and that was definitely something that they were working on. But I guess my question though is, you talk about like the one dam, I think it was the Highstreet Dam that you had to kind of go back and do a second feasibility on, obviously complex. And so that might be one reason where you have to struggle to get a dam removed. Was there any pushback at all in terms of like nostalgia? I know that some dams like that, and here I knew where you're dealing more with like industrial, not necessarily mill dams, where like, like mill dams, there's like nostalgia, like not, I was just curious if you got any pushback from that perspective, or just pushback from anybody kind of in the community about removing them.
Yeah, so there was a minimal concern among some people who fish on the downstream side of dams, but there wasn't any organized effort to kind of try to get the dam project killed or have it pushed back or whatever. So there was actually, I would say, a surprising amount of support for the project. Like I said, we actually have a pretty active community base who enjoys being on the water, whether it's canoeing, kayaking, or fly fishing. And they came out in full support of the project. And I think with that kind of helped carry the community voice that these removals were a good thing. So now there was some I don't want to say some pushback from the city government, but the city building overlooks the Highstreet Dam. And for years and years, whether it be, career government employees or the mayor at the time, they were used to looking out their window and seeing the backwater of the dam, right? That lake look. So when we were talking about that, there was a little like, oh man, we're going to lose that. I wouldn't call that pushback necessarily, but it was kind of funny that some of the government employees were kind of, would be sad to have seen that change. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then Daniel, you might be able to see the chat. There's a question there from Judy Brown asking a couple questions. Who was the person or people who first developed the idea for the project? Mm-hmm. And then how feasible is it to remove the sediment rather than letting it disperse downstream?
Yep. So the first question, I would say dam removal has been a small part of the desire to improve the water quality of Muncie for going back 50 years. So John Craddock, who founded the Bureau of Water Quality, has been pushing for, the factories and manufacturing processes to kind of clean up their act and to kind of help promote healthier water systems, promote, infrastructure that cleans the wastewater before it's put back into the White River. The Muncie Sanitary District has made a huge push to separate out their CSOs. City of Muncie, the SWCD has also made a huge push to educate landowners about BMPs and implementing those BMPs, implementing and expending cost share dollars for farmers. So, dam removal has kind of been talked about as part of those other actions and activities for 30 years, 40 years, but it really came to a head within the last 5 to 10 years as the Kissman Trailhead vision started to take place, and understanding that if you wanted to create a natural place, a trailhead, a destination park where people could experience the water, that dam removal specifically was key to that happening. And with that, if you're looking at one dam, you might as well look at the rest. So, I think with that, there's been even more momentum now within the community as they've seen the positive impacts of what has been accomplished so far, that, oh yeah, well, let's keep this momentum going and see what else we can accomplished within the community. So to answer Judy's second question about mechanically removing sediment, I'm going to throw some numbers at you here. So as part of the feasibility study, we also estimated the amount of sediment that could be behind each dam. And I want to start with, this Highstreet Dam. The estimated minimum amount of sediment behind the dam is believed to be 48,000 cubic yards. And the estimated maximum amount of sediment was 76,000 cubic yards. So if you figure, I'm gonna pull my calculator here. We'll go with a cool 60,000. And if you get 14, roughly, I think it's about 14 cubic yards in a triaxle truck, that may be the max. That's over 4,000 truckloads worth of material that would have to be moved out of the system, which is just a cost that would be insurmountable. I mean, you're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars. So it's not, unfortunately, that is typically an unfeasible action to take. And we feel very fortunate that we didn't even have to consider that, because it wouldn't have been possible. So.
Any other questions? You can type them in the chat if you prefer that, or feel free to unmute yourself and
David,
ask away.
I have another one. It's interesting. I think that when you talk about dam removal and, excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit, the geomorphology and that kind of stuff, and how things will change. I know it takes a lot of effort and money to actually study things like that on a large scale. But I'm curious, maybe in terms of like the flooding or erosion patterns maybe you've seen since the dam's been removed. I know they haven't gone long, so it's not much. But is there anything anecdotally that you all have seen in terms of maybe water levels changing up or downstream? I know you mentioned the riffle as the water's kind of receded, but in terms of like flooding, have you seen the flooding changing? Because I know we have kind of those spring rains and that kind of thing. And I was just curious if there was any change that you're seeing already. Right.
Nothing significant. So let's see here. I want to screen share again from the feasibility study, if that's okay. Let me pull up the page first. But one thing we looked at within the feasibility study is what effect these dams have on like 100-year floods, right? 50-year floods. And these studies have already completed by an engineering firm as part of the Muncie Sanitary District's Army Corps levee recertification process. So give me 1 second here and I can get you a rough dam location. Okay, so I believe, okay, so yeah, here is one dam. This is the George R. L. Dam, Dale Dam right here in the center of the map pretty much. And as you can see, so this kind of orange line and the green line and the blue line are kind of, the 100-year floods, elevations that they've looked at. And as you can see there's a slight, you could argue there's a slight uptick, right? If you're just to kind of carry this line through, you may see a slight elevation change. But at a 100-year flood, these dams barely notch anything, right? They're just not tall enough or big enough to make a huge significant impact on flood levels at that level, right? So by removing them, again, you're not going to see a significant change. Just because the volume of water and the size of the dam just means that kind of cancel each other out. So with that, yeah, we haven't seen a lot at all. We have noticed at the Indiana Steel and Wire Dam, there has been a bit of erosion along the left bank and what was the backwater pool of the dam. That is being addressed through the kind of the Kissman Trailhead project anyways, as that trail will run beneath the State Route 32 bridge along the river, and there has to be a bench built for that, So that erosion is being dealt with kind of through that project. But other than that, we haven't seen any issues. And I think especially at the George R. Dale Dam, that's because there's so much bedrock upstream of that dam. And the way that, that was a significant amount of floodplain there. It was very flat. There weren't any steep grade changes, which means that the river banks weren't really affected when that dam was removed and the water levels dropped. So does that answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Yep.
Hey guys, this is Jordan with the State Department of Ag, and just want to say, David and team, great presentation and visual documentation of the project. It's awesome to be able to just visualize and kind of see this as you made progress, and I think really highlights how a soil and water conservation district can improve an urban environment. We so often just talk about the ag or rural space, but obviously the impact this has had on the urban community in the city of Muncie is astounding. And I think, as Joe mentioned earlier, I'm a strong believer that people need to experience the resource to really appreciate it. And in your project, you've just taken the time to share with us, I think, is an excellent example of how to create that appreciation, right? Bring people the resource, and something that they may have just driven past prior or not utilized. Now you've allowed access to it. So outstanding job to the entire team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. I will comment on Joe's question a little bit about the flooding, and we haven't had the rains in the last year and a half since the dam has been removed that we've had at times prior. But I can attest to the Indiana Steel and Wire Dam. I spent 24 years at that factory, and there was times the river would come up into the back portion of the factory, and we'd have to sandbag to protect part of the production floor as well as our wastewater treatment plant. And then also at the George R. Dale Dam, David briefly referred to it as Macaulay Dam. That's because there is a Macaulay Park there, a city park. And there's times, there's a street that runs along the river there, and there's times that street would flood and it would approach into the park. So both of these projects, by removing that dam, should alleviate those issues in a heavy rain situation.
Thanks, Becky.
All right, well, we will finish up then. I just want to echo, as Jordan was saying, what a difference you're making in the community. Part of the District Showcase Award for me personally is to showcase districts who are making a difference and who can inspire other districts on projects. I've heard quite a bit over the years from different districts that the Showcase Award does do that. So kudos to you all in this project and all the work you've put into it. I especially appreciate that it will inspire other districts. I also appreciate just how it leverages the district name in the community of making a difference, especially nowadays as outdoor recreation has become even a bigger issue for people and families. And I appreciate that you're making a difference in your community in Muncie, and we're going to be able to share that throughout the state now with this recording.